Hello, folks. It's me, Kerbanaut here, and today I'm going to be doing something new. I'm going to be doing a kind of a new series. I say new series, really, I mean kind of new thing. It's going to be awesome, I hope. I'm going to be doing a moon base kind of bunch of videos, to do with the moon base, because I think everyone should have a moon base. Even if it's just a very small little thing, we should all have a moon base. So, there goes the dog, but we shall continue. Moonbase, right. So, first of all, before we start, I'm going to say I am going to be using Kethane. As you can see from, well, what you can see on screen right now, this little droid and this little thing I'm sending into orbit around the moon. I'm just building it right now. This is called Matthew, I believe. I think I'm going to call it Matthew. And it is just designed to search for Kethane around the moon, because we are going to have to put our moon base where there is Kethane, because that is kind of one of the main purposes of a moon base, is to kind of get resources and all that jazz. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using this moon base not only to kind of get resources, but just as a general kind of awesome moon base thingamabobby majiggy. I mean, who doesn't love having a moon base? And it's going to be so cool. Okay, so let's just get into a couple of the things that I'm going to have to talk about first. Let me think. I've got a few notes here. I've got a few notes on my computer that I'm just reading. First of all, we're going to have to kind of think about designing the base and such. Oh, and by the way, this thing kind of went weird, so I had to go back and redo it, but it went fine, and I'm launching that up into orbit and to the moon, and you'll see all that, so you can watch that while I'm saying this. So, mods, yes, should I be using mods in my moon base? Well, obviously, as you can see, I'm going to be using Kethane, but I think I want to keep it mostly mod free, not only because it'll kind of ruin my FPS, but also it will be rather I don't know, I feel as if it would be slightly cheaty if I used a lot of mods, you know? I want you to be able to follow my footsteps almost. If you feel the desire to do so, I think it would be better to show that you can create something awesome with stock parts. You don't need mods to make your game amazing. You can make an awesome thing just with stock parts. And so I think that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to try and not do too much with mods. Only the Kethane for me. That is good, that is all that I need, and that will be fine. Oh. Okay, so what next? Right, so we're getting this into an orbit right here. We're kind of getting a circular orbit. Funnily enough, I actually end up bringing the periapsis down to crash into the moon right there, you can see, because I forgot that we have an engine on the final probe, so I ditched the engine and then bring the probe just back up into a normal orbit, which is fine and all good and well. And then that starts scanning the surface. So let's talk about the construction of my base. I kind of planned this out, and I think it's going to be awesome. So here we go. This is the hub. The hub is going to be the main central thing. We're then going to have some truss elements, which is going to be very structural elements, just holding the thing together. We're then going to have battery centers. These battery centers are going to be holding all the power. The solar trusses are going to be generating all the power. And then we're going to have habitat modules for all the Kerbals to live in. Then finally we're going to have production and fun areas on the end, where I can add multiple things. So right now I'm just going to hand you over to me in the past, talking about these specific modules and just showing you through them and walking you through them, because it's going to be awesome! Yeah! Let's go! Thank you, future me. It's a pleasure, always a pleasure. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to walk you through what we have so far, what we have in the modules that we're going to be putting on this moon base. Right now, we've only got the core modules, so I am going to add to this. But for right now, we've only got the kind of the first kind of few core modules that we're going to be using. So, for instance, this is our first module that we're going to be putting down on the moon. I've yet to design a transportation method to get it actually onto the surface of the moon, but once it is on the surface of the moon, we are going to drive it along to the desired location with this buggy here, which I believe we've just talked about, and it's going to sit down. It's got landing legs and all this. So yeah, this is basically the hub. Now I'm going to be working off of a three-point system, as it were. I call it a three-point system. Really, it just means a triangle. I'm working off of a triangular system here. So instead of having 4 times symmetry on, I'm going to have 3 times symmetry on with just about all the components of my base. Those which don't have 3 times symmetry will probably have 2 times symmetry on, just to keep it going in a straight line. Okay, so yeah, now that I've talked about that kind of, oops, what I've done. Now that I've talked about the kind of 3 times symmetry that I'm going to be using, I'd also like to talk about this here, and I think I accidentally just brought that out as well. Now, I did talk about, or I hope I did, about this thing here. Now, this is a predefined height for the docking ports above the ground, because if we're going to be docking things on the ground, we do need a predefined height, and that needs to be a constant height, one that will not be changing over time. So this here is how I'm going to be keeping that height constant. First of all, that predefined height, may I just say, is the landing gear at this height, where the top of that landing gear meets the line on the top of this structural component right here. And we're keeping it the same, always the same, because we don't actually have to redo all of this every single time we make another craft. What I've done is I've designed this here, this little component. I've called it a truss. I've designed that in the spaceplane hangar, and then I've turned it into a sub-assembly with that lovely new sub-assembly tab we have here, because of this new update, which, may I say, I love. Thank you, developers, I do love that. But yeah, we've got the sub-assembly, so I'm using that, putting that to good use with my truss. So I've taken that, and it's in here. It's the Mun Base truss, and every time we need to use a landing gear, or every time we need a docking port, all I do is I stick down that truss and stick a docking port on there. And I know for a fact that if these landing gear are touching the ground, and let's hope they are, because it'd be kind of silly if the landing gear were not on the land. You get my point. If they are, it'll work fine, and everything will be at that predefined height. The only problem I'm going to have with this is with the new update comes some slightly more relaxed suspension, which is brilliant if you're coming down for a hard landing, or if you just like the feel of springy suspension. But for this purpose, it really doesn't help, the use of suspension. And for a time, I was really considering using wheels on the base just to move the base itself. But I figure, you know, if I'm going to make a moon base, it's got to look the part, and you don't see moon base. Well, I mean, you don't see any moon bases, but you don't think of a moon base and think, yes, that moon base has wheels. I think that anything with wheels kind of classes as a rover and isn't really a base as such. So we're going to use landing legs just for the kind of the sheer look of them, for the aesthetic reasoning. Okay, so now that we've looked at that, I'd like to walk you through the other components of this moon base right here. So as I said, this is the hub. Let's take a look at one of the other modules, in fact a few of the other modules that we're going to be using. Okay, so that's the hub right down here. Let's take a look at the 3 truss. Now the 3 truss is, I guess, just what it says. It's basically the same thing as the hub, except it's kind of smaller and lighter. It's only got this one wee thing on it here, which will be good. So it's lighter generally, and it just acts as a splitter, so that we can add more things onto our base. We can add more kind of corridors on, make it look slightly more interesting when it comes down to the final layout of the base. So that's that. You can see I've got some lights here, because we are going to need lights on the base or we aren't going to see anything. I've got some solar panels as well, because although we will have a power module, I do want to have solar panels on this bit right here, just to power this module. And if I need to power anything before I get the solar panels, the power module up, if I need to power anything, then it'll be good to have some wee solar panels just to keep the batteries and all that jazz up to full brim, top of the cup. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah. So that's the kind of the 3 truss. Very simple, right there. Now I mentioned the power module, and the power module comes in 2 parts. I've kind of broken it up into the battery and then the actual power generation. So this is what I call. Oh wow! Oh wow! Yes, I seem to have saved this with the whole battery, the power generation modules here. But I guess this is good. This is good. You can see what it's going to look like in the end. So here we can see the power module. This right here is the power module. So this this is just the battery module. Sorry, my bad. All it is, as you can see, is just a bunch of batteries and a couple of these trusses to get that predefined height again. And of course that lovely cockpit. I love this cockpit. It's a brilliant look, and I truly do like it. So yeah, and I guess seeing as we're here, I don't need to show you the power generation modules, because this is them here. I've called it a module because really that's all it is. Each thing is just one module, contains 4 large solar panels and 2 landing gear. It will of course be driven into place with a rover underneath it when it is launched up. However, once it's docked together, it will look something like this, hopefully. Well, let's just check if this. Okay, good. Right. So I'm going to launch this right now, and we can have a look, and we can see what it's going to look like. Okay, so we're just on the launch pad right here. Now it is quite dark. It really is quite dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a quick time warp round. Just before I do anything, I'm just going to time warp around to daytime. And now we can actually see how this works. So I'm going to put down the landing gear, press the G key. Hopefully, if it works, there we go. Okay, so that's the landing gear down. Now this is how it's going to sit on the moon. And now I'm going to fold out the solar panels. Now I've bound these to the key 1, so if I press 1, they should all just open majestically. Let's see if it works. And they are all opening majestically. That is good. The majestically part is a very important part of this process. Okay, so you can see here the sun's quite low in the sky, and this is a problem I am going to have with the moon as well. If the sun is quite low on the lunar horizon, I will have to wait. Anyway, so we can time warp forward, and you can see that this is what it's going to look like. We have our solar panels, and we have our batteries. So yeah, all the power is going to be generated from these solar panels right here, the big ones, the wonderful majestic ones, and then all that power, wonderful juicy power, is going to be stored in this large kind of multitude of batteries. And you can see it's got, like, you know, 20,200 charge, you know, so this is going to be able to power quite a bit, I think. And if we seem to be lacking in power storage, we can always, of course, just send out another module and dock it onto the other end. And this is going to be what's the brilliant thing about this moon base. You can, if you're lacking something, just bring another module in and dock it up. And I think that's really one awesome thing about modular moon bases. You can just bring in new things. Okay, so we're back in the vehicle assembly building, and I'm just going to load up the Mun Base habitat right here. So let's take a look at this. This is another module, and this, you'll notice, has 3 rovers on it, and that is for the reason of this thing is a heavy beast. Originally it was so heavy that the landing legs could not support the weight and just sagged tremendously under the pressure of under the weight of this thing. But I redesigned it slightly, and I took away the cockpits that were here and here and replaced them with this. Now, you can't design this like I would have wanted to I say that, I mean, I've had to basically put, let's find it now. I've had to oh, there it was. Missed it. I've basically had to put these things right here. I've had to put them inside the, these kind of habitation modules, these habitation things, storage containers, so that I can connect them kind of laterally onto these, which is fine, and it looks good, and it's brilliant, and it's a nice alternative to doing anything else. But the only problem is that these things do weigh a bit, you know, 1.5 right there. And on its own, that's fine, but when you have 3 of them, plus this big heavy capsule here, this big heavy cockpit, it really does start to bog you down, and so I've had to redesign it a bit. But this is the kind of the final product, and as you can see, this is not a kind of a three symmetry thing. This is, of course, just a continuation of a strand, and I'm trying to do that with everything. So, I think that's me, and I will now give you back to Mr. Future Me, I believe. You know, the post narration. So, back to you. Thank you, past me, thank you very much. Okay, so we've had a look at the design of the base, we've had a look at the layout of the base, we've looked at whether or not we're going to be using mods in the creation of this base, and I think that is really all we can do this episode. But next episode, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be laying everything out on Kerbin, making sure it all fits, making sure it all works, just before we go ahead and try to launch all to the moon, because we don't want to have to spend a ton of time on the moon trying to get things to work when they initially would not have worked. And so I think it's just better to be safe than sorry and test things out on Kerbin. However, that'll have to be done next episode, as this is the end of this episode, and I will end on the note of just saying that we have found a lovely little spot on the moon, on, I think it's the retrograde side of the moon, and there's a nice little kind of Kethane deposit. It's in kind of an equatorial area, so we can land there when we need to. But I think that is all from me this episode, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.